Actually a very exciting panel. I'll give you a little bit of background on the moderator for this panel, which we're calling Come Together, which is all about the power of connecting. And it's both connecting from your customer standpoint, but also connecting with other businesses and strategic relationships. And I don't know if he knew that I was going to say this today, but Dr. Neal Cutler, who is the executive director, he's looking at me now, who's the executive director of the Center for Aging at the Motion Picture Television Fund. We have been meeting recently, and he had all this USC paraphernalia in his office, and I said, oh, USC, I'm alumni from USC. He said, well, when did you graduate? And of course, being the boomer woman that I am, I hesitated to throw the year out there, but I went ahead. And he said, well, what was your major? And I said, well, I graduated with a degree in journalism and poli-sci. And he said, well, did you ever take poli-sci 101? I said, yeah. He goes, I was your professor. So I've chosen my professor as our next moderator for this wonderful panel. And I want to introduce him so he can introduce the rest of his panel. This is Dr. Neal Cutler.
We have an interesting panel. I won't introduce them all because their biographies are in your handout. Just to say that we have a distribution. We have engineers, and we have marketers, and we have people in mobile computing. We have at least 2 or 3 of each. We have one lone gerontology professor who's part of this as well. I've been teaching for almost 40 years. I've been teaching gerontology. I've taught political science in gerontology. I've taught technology in gerontology, business. So we have quite a profile. Have you all have mics? You all been mic'd up? You'll take my mic. Okay. Let me get to the slides then. I got all this stuff down here. Well, we have prepared a slide showing our panel's theme, and the theme is creating longevity and creating partnerships for the businesses that serve the elders. But we want to expand capacities of elders to stay connected. That's the key to the theme. Stay connected with family, with friends, neighborhood, and society. But it's not just the theme that's important, it's the focus. This panel focuses on the products and the services that facilitate these connections between elders and the rest of society. But also, we've chosen the people because they focus on the partnerships between technology and non-technology organizations that make all these successful. I want to introduce this, one example of elders, of a project where elders are being facilitated to be connected. It's a project that I've been working on for the last couple of years at the Motion Picture Television Fund, where I'm director of the Center on Aging. We have lots of elders who are aging in place, about 50,000 entertainment retirees in the Los Angeles area who are aging in place. And we realize that aging in place shouldn't be aging in isolation. So we've developed a range or a profile, a portfolio, if you will, of services that allow people to stay in their own homes as long as they can successfully. But I prepared this slide especially to note that technology isn't the only part of what we're doing to help people stay at home. So we have a staff and programs in social services, and you can see that home renovation, volunteerism, transportation, and technology. It's at the bottom only because we're here, and I want to emphasize that. But the key is that aging in place need not be aging in isolation. And because I work for the Motion Picture Television Fund, I do need to illustrate that with a movie. So Home Alone is okay, but not home in isolation. And what our project has done is that we have not developed at all. We've assembled technology pieces to facilitate this aging in place that's not aging in isolation. And so I put here a list of the name of the project is CASE, Computer Assisted Social Engagement. That is, we want to support people who are staying at home, aging in place for as long as they can, but not in isolation. And we want to introduce computing to those elders who've never used computers before. As a number of people have said throughout the day, those who are elders have not lived in a work environment where computers have been part of their everyday life. So we decided to introduce computing, and so this small trial, about a dozen families over 2 years, introduced computing to the homes of 80-year-olds who've never had computers before. And these are their I call these the socio-technical specifications. I mean, not looking at the technical stuff, but the social technical stuff. We didn't build anything. We assembled computers and software, touchscreens, no mouse or keyboard needed, very simple software, spoken email. The system we decided to put into people's homes, they could speak their email. They didn't have to type. They could listen to the emails coming in because the email that came in, we converted to voice. All the components were off the shelf, all retail. We didn't want to build anything. We wanted to make it available for everybody. And the question we asked ourselves as we looked at a range of different software products, and I'm not endorsing any of these, but just to identify, these are the ones we looked at and we began to use and tried out with our families. The question was, does this kind of thing need complicated manuals? And you know the answer, of course, is no. We've heard several times the idea that that things are getting mostly easier to use. And so to illustrate that, the final introductory slide is, it's hard to believe the iPad's only been out for about 2 years. When it first came out about 2 years ago, I found this slide of a picture of Virginia, age 99 and a half, whose eyesight was declining, but was a poet. And so her family gave her an iPad. And she could change the font size, she could type a little easier, she could read a little easier. And to juxtapose that, I took a picture of this young fellow, Jake, 2.5. By the way, in his left hand, that is a Star Wars saber. What do you call it? That's his lightsaber. But in his right hand, he is using his father's iPhone. And so I asked the question, in terms of our use of computers or introducing computers to elders who've never used computers before, do we need computer manuals? The answer is obviously no. The interface is everything. And I can guarantee you that Jake didn't read the manual because Jake can't read. So the idea is that the interface is there. We can introduce computing to people of all ages and make their lives better. And with that as an introduction of the kinds of ways in which we can help people stay connected, I'll move into our panel. I think the slides are in the order in which we are set up to do this. So first it's Richard Lobovsky, and I'll let you take over from there. Thank you. You have a mic, okay. I want to sit over there. I have to sit over here because I'll be given signals as to when to say that.
Okay, I'll keep an eye to you over there. Well, thank you very much. My name is Rich Lobovsky. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for Lifecomm. And first, I want to thank the Silver Summit for inviting us to present here for a second year. We're excited and honored to be here. Lifecomm, if those who are not familiar with the company, we're a startup, a joint venture between Qualcomm, Hughes Telematics, and American Medical Alert Corporation. And I'm going to talk today a little bit about the mobile personal emergency response system and technology that we're developing and bringing to market here in the second quarter of this year. So if folks are familiar with traditional PERS technology, these are wearable devices that are typically worn in the home to assist individuals to summons emergency assistance when required. We have developed a product and a service that will leverage some of the progress that PERS has made, but then combine that type of technology with wireless technology to offer a solution to the marketplace where individuals can get this type of coverage while they're in or outside of their home. So these devices, which I'm wearing one of here today, come in a variety of different form factors, a pendant, a belt clip, a watch form factor, and they actually have a cellular modem built into the device. So it supports two-way voice and two-way data communications, and obviously because it's based on the cellular network, it works in and outside of the home. Obviously, when an individual's mobile, in order to deliver assistance services to them, you got to find out where they are. So we're using a Qualcomm chipset that has integrated GPS into the device, and then we use a number of other location determination schemes through software to most effectively and efficiently locate that device. And then if assistance is needed, we can then dispatch assistance to that particular location where that individual is. We are going to look at capturing various kinds of information from the individual just with the goal of being able to serve them when they're in a time of need. So it is very much a personalized service, and it will be running on one of the nation's largest wireless networks, which has got broad coverage, so there's a good degree of effectiveness and reliability there. And really what it's really all about is providing additional independence for the user themselves and security to some degree for the user, knowing that there's sort of a guardian angel out there, as well as to the caregiver. And I'll talk a little bit about the caregiver's role here in a minute. When we look at these kinds of solutions, first of all, just to look at some data, today we've got about 37 million folks in the U.S. over 65. As everybody knows, the baby boomers started turning 65 this year, so there's about 10,000 people per day turning 65. And the market's going to go from 36 or 37 million people today to about 70 or 72 million people by the end of 2030. When you look at falls, again, here in the U.S. population, today about 1/3 of all seniors take a fall every year. So it's about 13 million falls per year. As the population increases, the number of falls will increase. So that number of falls is going to look to increase to about 24 million by the end of 2030. So being able to detect and respond to a fall is, we believe, is critical in a solution and a service like this. So there are various techniques that are used to detect a fall. There's a good degree of science that's baked in here, and there are several companies in the market today that have fall detection schemes both for landline solutions as well as one or two that have for mobile solutions. It usually involves embedding various kinds of sensors in the device. An accelerometer is typically a base sensor that you need. We're employing some other types of sensors as well to effectively identify a fall. And then, obviously, once that fall is detected, the systems automatically open up a voice and data channel to the emergency response center. So the individual doesn't necessarily have to push a button on the device to get connectivity to a resource that can provide support to them. Then on the back end, there are various protocols that we would employ to determine and dispatch the appropriate assistance based on the particular case. And again, providing an additional safety net for seniors is important. We did quite a bit of market research on these kinds of solutions as we've been developing them. And fall detection typically falls at either the number 1 or number 2 most valued type of service and feature of any of the features that are involved in any kind of mobile PERS solution. So we do believe that it's a very important aspect of any solution coming to market. And then I'll talk a little bit about the added peace of mind to caregivers. Basically, what we're going to do is offer a web portal as part of the service. So a family member caregiver can go on and locate an individual using mapping software that's baked into the web application. They can set up all kinds of alerts. So if there's a low battery on the device, they can get alerted on their cell phone or in their email. If there's an overdue test call, if the individual they're caring for arrives and departs at certain locations, they can go onto a web portal and essentially identify a location. So, for example, mom has a doctor's appointment at 10 a.m., type in the address of the doctor's address. It creates a geographic boundary around that facility, and then when the device enters or exits that particular geographic zone, the family member caregiver can get an alert to their email or to their cell phone. So those are just a couple of examples. Inactivity alerts is another one. Really the idea being that caregivers are stakeholders in the care of the people that they're watching over, and it's important to try to reduce the burden of care, and this is one way to go about doing that. Obviously, there's a new definition of what a senior is. I guess 80 is the new 60. I think I've heard that somewhere. But essentially, one thing that we think is important also is to accommodate that active lifestyle. So one of the things that we're embedding into our solution is the ability to get activity summary reports. So there's, as I mentioned, a tri-axis accelerometer in the device. So we can actually report on the number of steps that are taken, just like the pedometer, who was Robin, who was talking about that earlier. We can also detect various types of activity, and what we intend to do is create a daily activity score. So a caregiver could sit at a web portal, and let's say mom has used the device for 30 days, and she baselines at a 40. One day, she's at a 10. Well, that's a sign for a caregiver to intervene, right? That there's probably something wrong. So we think that this is a good tool both for the user to kind of get a sense of how they're doing with their activity regimen, but also for the caregiver to intervene when appropriate. And then inactivity status is also important. You want to make sure that the person you're taking care of or caring for is actually, getting up and doing their activities of daily life. So the system enables you to set parameters for inactivity. And then again, as the family member caregiver, you can get alerted when that individual is inactive during a time during the day when they should be active. Again, this creates baselines and data trends over time, so whether the individual scores a 40 or a 20 is not so important. It's really the trend that occurs over a period of time, and then when they deviate from that trend, giving that family member caregiver, again, an opportunity to intervene. So I mentioned before that we're facilitating this caregiver view through a web interface, and a lot of rich features embedded in that. So I'm going to wrap up with this slide by saying that what I've talked about today briefly is really what we see as the beginning. We think that over time, while some might say the device is fairly small and light, we think that the devices will get smaller and will get lighter in general. A lot of what drives that is battery power. So as you improve efficiencies in batteries, you get greater life and smaller sizes and lighter. So we think that the devices will evolve as battery technology evolves. And then we also are looking at the idea of embedding these devices not only with cellular, which is current today, but other kinds of low-power RF radios that would enable communications for this device to communicate with other medical devices around the body, as well as sensors that may be worn on the body. This will then really create what we refer to as a wireless health data hub. So essentially, this system captures data from various types of medical devices in the body, on the body, and around the body, and then transmits that data over the cellular network, and then serves that data back up to the stakeholders, the user themselves, the caregiver, et cetera. So we think that this wireless hub functionality is going to be important in the future. And then finally, last but not least, embedding various types of medical sensors in the device and enabling it to do vital signs monitoring. So we think the future for these kinds of solutions are very bright, and we look forward to participating in it. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Richard. I'm Mike Starling. I'm the Vice President for the Technology Research Center at NPR Labs. Some of you may be aware that we just acquired a new CEO by the name of Gary Neal. He was the head of Sesame Workshops. So you'll understand when I tell you that today's talk is being brought to you by the number 4 and the letter C. Numerous studies have documented quite well how silvers thrive through companionship, through connections, through civic engagement in their communities, and often by becoming advocates for good causes, champions even. These are the 4 C's that are important factors in the success of graying nations. At NPR, we have achieved some success over the last 45 years in extending our signal coverage out to more than 95% of all Americans. And it's taken us that long to do it through our local member station network of over 800 member stations, and now several hundred websites in addition. So it should come as no surprise to you that we are shifting from questions of geographic reach to how to reach people better. And just yesterday, I would be remiss if I didn't highlight the fact that we just came out with a rather revolutionary partnership with Ford, where we are now the very first sync application that gives you direct access to NPR news content. You can see it downstairs. I'll do a shameless plug here at the Ford booth and many of the vehicles that they have on display. Now, at my unit, NPR Labs, we've done some more targeted research, thanks in large part to the National Institute on Disability Rehabilitation and Research, and I'm going to share just a couple of snapshots with you of some of what we have been up to. Now, since many of tomorrow's radios will happen to feature a viewing screen, it gives us entirely new options, such as captioning for the nation's 36 million deaf and hard of hearing, folks affected with severe hearing loss. And as we age, of course, that becomes more of a problem for all of us. So this is a picture that what we happened to do on election night almost 4 years ago with the very first over-the-air demonstration to a collection of 5 different stations and markets nationwide. and folks from the deaf and hard of hearing communities were invited to come in, check it out, tell us what they think, and to help us design the form factor that you see in the lower right corner of the screen here, which will probably be exactly the way in which we present the very first caption radio broadcast. Now, unfortunately, comorbidity is a sensory loss that's all too common. 1 in 23,000 Americans suffer from Usher syndrome, an incurable so-called orphan disease which gradually causes vision and hearing loss as people age. So once we had the caption radio concept up and running, a fellow was heckling me at the back of the room one day. I see him in the room today, as a matter of fact, saying, "What about Braille?" And I kept saying, "Oh, we're working on some different stuff for the visually impaired through radio reading services for the blind and porting that over to digital radio channels." And he kept saying, "What about Braille?" And he finally came up at the end of the session, and his name was Boppin, and he was from the Helen Keller National Center. And he said, "We need Braille output for those who are deafblind." So I smacked my forehead and I said, "Of course, I understand what you're talking about." He says, "Can we work on it together?" And for the last 3 years, we have been doing exactly that. And I'm showing you here a picture of some of the testing that we did recently. And what you see at the bottom of the screen is a refreshable Braille device that many of the deafblind use as their only means of communications electronically with the outside world. So we have tested this extensively, and I'm really proud of the fact that it looks like we've really nicely nailed the design together. It's very, very simple. There are 3 little status buttons that pop up on the far left that give you a read the menu, a main menu, read the radio, a main menu, and an active alert condition. The active alert condition is important because if there is an emergency alert in the middle of the night, we can, of course, send that to this device, which will be connected to a bed shaker that will wake them up. They'll know to come over and read what the emergency alert information is, shelter in place or evacuate, and be able to take the appropriate action. So this is an exciting activity that just this year we hope to bring to closure and to be able to launch very, very soon. So one last thing that I will bring up and mention to you is a question. What do these children have in common? There's 77 of them on the screen here. For those of us who might happen to be grandparents, we all know that they're somebody's grandchild, somebody's child. And I would submit that they also happen to be members of a community typically served by a public radio station. Now, I said there's 77, so that's less, unfortunately, it's less than 10% of the number of about 840 children every year that are the subject of an Amber Abduction alert. That's a problem. What can we do with these new radio devices that have visual screens on them? What if, instead of once every 10 miles as you travel down the roadway when there's an Amber Alert or a Silver Alert, there was actually, when you see the overhead sign, instead of once every 10 miles, what if it's right on the dashboard of hundreds or thousands of radios? What if it enabled us to aid in the recovery of just one child? What would that mean to just one community, to just one family, and to just one kid? That's what we demonstrated earlier this year in May with the very first implementation of active radio for an Amber Alert. This was actually at a Capitol Hill demonstration where we showed this off with the HD radio people, Ubiquity Digital, who supported us in being able to use the new album art application to send information about Amber Alerts and Silver Alerts. So this is the kind of work that we do. It's really exciting. It's the kind of good work that we're gratified about, and we look forward to in being able to marry new technologies to your old enduring companion of radio, and to be able to serve people in new ways, regardless of age and regardless of any limitations in their abilities. All right, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Dan Siewiorek from Carnegie Mellon University, and I'm acting director of the Quality of Life Technology Center, which is a National Science Foundation-funded engineering research center that is based at Carnegie Mellon University and the University of Pittsburgh. What I'd like to do is share with you a vision of the future. We have over 100 researchers working in the center, so I'm going to present some of their glimpses that represent over 400 person years of research. And the goal of the center is to using intelligent systems that enable older adults and people with disabilities to live independently and also live independently longer. And in addition to this, we're looking at people staying in their home longer so they can be connected with their neighbors. Mobility, driving, we heard earlier today about how important driving is for people's independence. And also, not to be forgotten, the caregivers. Very often the extra burden on the caregivers lead to their health decline. So is there a way also of this technology assisting the caregivers? And we'd like to define technology as the difference between the person's desire, what they'd like to do, and their capability. And what we've done is we've created 4 research thrusts along the bottom and then 4 test beds to demonstrate how this technology can be used. So let me just give you a little bit of flavor of each of those. So on the lower left is mobility and manipulation. People who have a difficulty getting around, maybe because of spinal cord injuries, how can they get around the house? How can they pick up things when they're in a wheelchair? The second one is perception and awareness. We want to know what people are doing so that we can determine their desires so that the technology can proactively fulfill their needs. The third one is person and society. Will the technology be accepted? Most people think that, for example, video technology recording in the home would not be accepted. But when you present these to senior citizens and you restrict the parts of the home that are being videotaped, they will, in exchange for living in their own environment longer, will accept the technology. So we got to know what the technology will bring. And then the last one on the bottom right is human-system interaction. Will people relate to the technology? Will they be able to adapt to it? If I have tremors, how can I use a touchscreen? Is there a way to overcome that? So those are the basic technologies. And then we've got 4 test beds to demonstrate how these technologies can actually integrate into systems and be deployed. First one is home and community health and wellness. Help people stay in their home longer. One technology is a queuing kitchen. When people are preparing meals, the kitchen helps them through the steps of the meal as they progress. We have another one called a health kiosk that allows people to take their vital sign measurements and communicate with their medical and caregivers easier in the home without having to go and make a separate visit to the doctor's office. The second one is QualtBots, quality of life technology robots. And in not too distant future, we'll have more robots in the home than we will have PCs today. And in particular, these robots will not look like traditional robots of science fiction. They'll have dedicated activities, things like perhaps helping people transfer from their bed to their wheelchair and also help with fine motor movement. The third one is safe driving. We heard a little bit about that this morning also, as how important the car is to people's independence. And can we look at the ability of a person, ability changes, and compensate for that? And then the fourth one, there's virtual coaches. These are companions that provide information to help you successfully complete some task. One example is a memory exerciser, which takes pictures throughout the day and audio clips that a caregiver can organize into a video that could be replayed at the subject's desire, and they can replay it without having to have intervention by the caregiver, relieving the caregiver of stress. At the same time, it has been shown to improve the person's memory in addition to memory of things that were not in the video. And then we'd like to get this out into the community, individuals and community. We also work with a nonprofit called Blue Roof, which has a set of cottages with instrumentation and using machine learning to be able to decide where people are continue living alone. So we have a process for identifying these technologies and moving them out called the Qualt Foundry. And let me go through a few of these. We had tiramisu this morning, which you might have seen as crowdsourcing for people riding buses. In Pittsburgh, seniors can ride a bus free during the middle of the day, but not during rush hour. That's when buses are sparse, and you'd like to know when they're coming so you don't have to wait out in the cold. The NAP Pre-Science is actually looking at providing people routes that are a function of capability. Like, for example, if I'm doing, have a tough time making left turns at twilight in the dark when I cannot judge the oncoming traffic speed very well, my navigation system will be informed that I should be given right turns or only left turn arrows. Vibe Tire was designed for deaf people to be able to feel their music because it's a vibrating vest. Lean and Zoom is for those people who have visual challenges like we all have. As you lean forward to look at your screen, it actually enlarges that region of the screen so that you don't have to do anything, and as you lean back, it goes back to normal vision. And then finally, the first-person vision. It's basically a camera that sees what the person sees, and also does an eye tracker, so I can use it to recognize people's faces and remind people who they are. Like earlier today, I've been reminded of my student, but instead of, it was a great surprise. And then also allows you to navigate through new situations. So what I'd like to do is ask you to come see some of our technology. All these coaches I talked about can be viewed at our booth in Quality of Life Technology and our partners. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Is the volume okay? Great. My name is Brooks Kenny, and I am with a company called Lotsa Helping Hands. And I'm going to be speaking with you today about caregiving and what we do to help caregivers feel connected in community. I'd like to begin by inviting you all to think about some of these questions that I'm going to ask. And you're welcome to raise your hand or just ponder the answer in your own mind. Do you find yourself on a regular basis doing any of these tasks? Rearranging your schedule to care for mom or dad or a grandparent? Taking time out of your workday to drive mom, dad, or granddad to a medical appointment? Worrying about how you're going to care for your parents? So I'm sure many of you are nodding your heads, or many of you are also raising your hands, and your customers and your employees are answering yes to these questions as well. It's estimated that 80% of care received by older Americans is provided by family members. Spouses, children, grandchildren, people just like you and me, and just like your customers and employees. Let's imagine for a moment that I'm a caregiver. I want you to get to know me. My mother has Alzheimer's disease, and I'm her primary caregiver. I'm not used to holding a mic standing up here like this. I am part of a growing demographic of people who are caring for loved ones. I am the one who keeps her connected to her social community. I'm also the one who keeps my siblings who live at a distance informed about what's going on in mom's life. I am a caregiver, but it's very difficult for me to even associate with that word. To me, I'm just a daughter taking care of mom. I'm also a wife and a mother. I work out of my home in a career that I love. When I'm at work, I'm often worrying about my mom. How will she manage things as her health declines? How will I, as her caregiver? I often arrive late to work, sometimes have to leave early, or use company resources during the middle of the day in order to make sure that my mom's care is taken care of. 67% of my counterparts as caregivers are doing the same thing. I save the healthcare industry money by providing unpaid care to my mom. I also cost the industry money because I'm more prone to heart disease, depression, and diabetes. I am really overwhelmed, and I feel very much alone. But the truth is I'm not. There's 65 million people like me. That's not my story, but it very well could be someday. 43 million boomers are caring for older parents. Let me tell you a true story about Marie. I have the privilege in my company to meet with people who use our service on a regular basis. I met with someone today who walked up to me, and it made my day. And Marie called me one day, and she told me about her role as a caregiver. She's caring for her mom with Alzheimer's disease. After about a year of since her mom's diagnosis, she and her husband brought Marie in to live with her in her home. A year later, her husband got a devastating diagnosis of cancer. Now Marie's caregiving journey has completely changed. Within 3 months of her husband's diagnosis, Marie decided to leave her job. She had been a successful vice president of a Fortune 500 company. This is a true story that she shared, and I'm sure many of you have heard stories in the work that you do. She shared with me how overwhelmed she was, not only by her caregiving duties, but by the abundance of offers of help that she received from those people that we're connected to in our life, our friends, our family, our colleagues, those people who rushed to her side and said, "Marie, what can I do to help you?" And they were texting her and emailing her and messaging her on Facebook and saying, "Can we bring a meal? What can we do?" She was so overwhelmed by those offers of help and didn't really know how to manage it. She did tap into community, and her family continues to persevere. So why am I telling you these stories? At some point in our lives, most of us will become caregivers. Your employees and your customers will too. Most will care for an elderly parent, some a spouse, others a child. Some will care for days, others months, but many more will care for their loved one for years. And while they provide care and time, they will continue to work and do laundry and pay the bills and help with homework and mow the lawn and maintain friendships. And they're going to need a break. They need a time out. They need a time to catch their breath. They need a way to raise their hand and say, "Yeah, I need some help. I need to connect with my community. I need to feel less alone." The Lotsa Helping Hands service was created to answer that question. What can I do to help? And to bring together someone's circles of community. All these people that know each other, that know the caregiver and the family. Family, friends, people from your religious community, colleagues at work, neighbors in your town. They all know the caregiver and the family that might be struggling with something, but they may not know each other. They're all bombarding the family, offering to help. So that's why we created Lotsa Helping Hands, to answer that question and to bring together someone's circles of community, to help with those daily tasks that become a challenge during times of medical crisis, caregiver exhaustion, or when caring for an elderly parent. The service is very simple. It's private community websites. Everybody has their own user ID and password. There's a coordinator status, and that person has administrative privileges within the community. It's often the caregiver, but often a close family member or friend. And then the members, those very well-meaning folks who have said, "Marie, I'm here for you. What can I do?" They sign in, become a member of a community, and they can easily see tasks that require helping on our calendar that's specifically designed for caregiving situations. Maybe it's meals on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or rides to a medical appointment on Tuesday and Thursday, or maybe just a task for visiting with mom or dad on Friday so that the caregiver can get some respite for a couple of hours. There's also community building features within the service that allow people to connect, share photos, post well wishes, share information, message boards, etc. And then finally, and in particular importance with elder care situations, there's a vital information section that allows people to safely store and retrieve vital information to the family, health, medical, legal, financial. So if you have a community and for your mom and dad and you only want your siblings to see the health and or maybe the medical and the financial and the legal records, anyone else that signs in, that information simply wouldn't appear for that person. We've grown our business by partnering primarily or initially with nonprofit organizations who have a need to reach the caregiving audience. So we have partnerships with more than 50 national nonprofit groups like the National Family Caregivers Association, the American Lung Association, the Alzheimer's Association. These groups have a specialized version of our service and they offer it to their audience. So if you go to the American Lung Association because your loved one has lung cancer and you're looking for information and you want to learn more, there's a place in the caregiving section to create a community powered by Lotsa Helping Hands. And what's great is that within those communities, through our partnerships with nonprofits, those 50 people that join that community, they can read resources from the American Lung Association. So if I'm signing up to help, I want to know what's going on with that particular situation so that I can be that much more of a help. On the business front, we also work with companies that want to align with our audience. We have 750,000 members in more than 50,000 communities across the country. And so we have a lot of companies that want to provide their information or resources to our existing audiences. We have a great partnership with United Healthcare where we provide some of their information to our audience, and then we also provide webinars and educational programming to their employees in their employer programs. We also allow companies to license our service. So if you have a company and you want to provide a service like this to your employees or to the consumers who visit your site, we provide that business opportunity as well. So in summary, we really believe in the power of connecting, which is why I was so delighted and really honored to be invited to participate in today's panel. It really does reinforce our philosophy at Lotsa Helping Hands. We believe that communities of help can really make a difference in bringing caregivers together with the people that love them so that they can stay connected. We know that there's a growing need. We have to pay attention to the needs of caregivers. I know Andy Cohen's going to be speaking in a moment about caregiving in more detail, and it's just such an important issue for all of us in this business. There's also a growing recognition that companies are doing good and they are engaging with their employees and saying, how can we work with our employees so they can volunteer and participate in community? And that's a great way to use Lotsa Helping Hands. And finally, as we've heard throughout the day today, everybody's online, every generation. And so we want to be able to connect with people where they already are and make sure that we make their life that a little bit easier. We believe that connecting through support online means that more caregivers can ask for help, more people can help. Real life communities are formed online, and as we like to say here, that means that helping hands abound, and that's a really good thing because the need is very, very great out there. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Do we have time for questions? One or two questions from the audience? Is it a question? Go to a microphone. Hurry. Tick, tick,
No,
tick.
no questions for our panel?
No,
We're running a
there-
little,
no,
oh, we
there
have one?
is.
Okay.
Hi, just a quick question for Lots of Helping Hands. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the user experience, user design, when you're thinking about caregivers and kind of what they're going through, feeling overwhelmed and such, and what they need to see in order to be effective.
Yeah, I would be happy to. I mean, primarily our philosophy is to keep things very, very simple and very understandable. And while we don't have large guidebooks or manuals, we do have an incredible support system that provides not only emotional support, but technical support to our members who are having trouble. And I could give you, we've been actually in the last 6 months going through a very intensive product development cycle, interviewing our members to find out what they need. And so I can talk to you in more detail, but I would say simplicity and simplicity is the main factor.
Any other questions? Great. Well, we're running a little bit behind, so I want to thank our panel for the power of connecting. It's wonderful. And before I bring up our next speaker, I did mention that we have a few kind of key messages throughout the day. Again, you know, part of our TV theme is that we have these important messages. And I'm going to be introducing a colleague and a friend of mine, Andy Cohen, in a minute. But earlier, Alex had referenced Caregiving Club. And somebody said, you know, you should get up there and explain what you do, besides the Silver Summit. So I'm going to take my shameful commercial message here and try to put it into 60 seconds for you. I'm Sherry Snelling. I'm the CEO of the Caregiving Club, which is something a company I started about a year ago. We do two things, and it's all focused on the family caregivers that we've been hearing a lot about, particularly with our most recent panel. 44 million Americans are caring for a family member over the age of 50. And where I focus is really on how do we help these caregivers balance caring for themselves while they're also caring for their loved ones. So our company does two things. One, we offer consulting services to companies, probably like yours out there, to help you understand better who these caregivers are, what they're going through, how to help them and support them. The second thing that we do is we create content. So I write a blog right now that is actually carried through a syndicate of different websites, such as the Alzheimer's Association, Third Age, Wow, reaches about 8 million boomers every month. And I welcome any information that you have. You can send that to me at caregivingclub.com, and my email I can give out to you later. I also create a television show. We had our pilot that aired this year. It's called Handle with Care. And the whole focus is around taking a look at a real-life caregiving situation. What are the challenges for this caregiver and their family? And then bringing in experts to help them find those solutions. So it's a real educational kind of self-help type of program. And we will have new episodes that will be airing this fall. And if you go to the website, we'll be able to tell you where you can find those and when we'll be airing. And then we also do weekly video tips in partnership and coordination with a nonprofit group called Healthy Mondays. And they're based on science from Johns Hopkins University and others who show that if you start and adopt healthy habits on a Monday and stick with it and check in with yourself every Monday, you're more likely to be successful with it, whatever you're trying to do, whether it's to stop smoking or a healthier diet, healthier exercise. So all great stuff, and you can find information about it on caregivingclub.com. That's my shameful plug. Now I'm going to introduce to you someone who's really going to give you a grand picture of caregivers.
All right, so I'm not Aretha Franklin. I'm Andy Cohen, though a lot of people do get me mixed up. Sherry asked me to spend just a couple of minutes while people are taking bathroom breaks talking about why you would care about caregiving. And I think you heard, and you'll see a lot in the show and hear a lot of these panels on why caregivers need a lot of help. But and it's wonderful to be working and helping caregivers because you get this wonderful feel-good nature of it. But I was going to talk today about why it's such a great business opportunity and why, if you're focused on this market at all, you should be looking at the caregivers as your primary target market. And I'm going to share some data with you that will help you, hopefully help you see that, and then take any questions. So just by way of background, Caring.com launched 4 years ago to be a resource for adult children who are caring for aging parents. We're now the largest caregiving, family caregiving site on the web. We last month reached 2 million unique visitors to the site. We have lots of articles, experts to answer questions, really robust community, and a directory of 100,000 local senior care resources with user ratings and reviews. We've won a number of awards, but from that position of seeing all these caregivers, we've got a lot of data on exactly who they are and what kind of things they need. So for starters, I show this slide a lot, especially when I was out raising money, on why this market is so interesting, and compare the family caregiving market to other more well-known sexier markets like the bridal market or the baby market. So just in the US, there's 2 million brides each year, and you can spend a lot of money on a wedding. I'm sure some of you have done that. There's 4 million babies born in the US each year, and you spend a lot of money on kids. I've got 2 data points on that. But there's 43 million people who are caring for someone over 50. This is the ARP study. And so it's just a shocking order of magnitude, 10 times larger market. And when you look into how much money is spent around caregiving, it dwarfs what's spent on weddings and babies because it involves housing, it involves medicines, it involves in-home equipment, it involves services, and it goes on and on. It's literally a $1 trillion category, and unlike the bridal and baby market, it's exploding because people are living longer and the population's aging. And a lot of the boom that's going on right now is in that 85-plus group, and those folks are going to need a lot of help. So that burden is going to fall primarily to the family caregivers, and I'm going to talk about them in a minute. One of the things that we were surprised at when we started the site was how many folks are living with their parents. And I just saw this article in the Wall Street Journal last week that a huge spike in multi-generational living. So Caring.com visitors who tend to be a little more affluent than your typical US household, about 20% of their parents are in assisted living or retirement living. 30% of those parents are living independently at home, and over half are living with them. So many people are bringing their parents back into their homes for financial reasons mostly, and that's creating a whole number of opportunities for things to improve the house. So often when you think of these seniors, you think of them in an institutional care setting or on their home remotely, but over half of them are going to be in somebody else's house that might need to be retrofitted or provided with additional services and tracking in someone's own house. So that was surprising to us and wanted to share that with you. The other thing is this family caregiver, how many of them are online? So the typical profile of a caring.com visitor is a 57-year-old woman. She is online. She's visiting caring.com during their office hours. Our traffic spikes between 9 and 5 because people are dealing with this in the office when they have time. And online support is now the #1 place. We've tracked this for the last 4 years. More people are going online than are going to God, which we found from this data. They may also be going to God, but they report that they're going online for support first. And so if you're targeting this market, they are all online. 85% of them have high-speed internet access, and they're all comfortable using the web. That's definitely not the case with folks 75 plus. I've seen a lot of data on that 75 plus market. They're just not as comfortable with the web, but folks in their 50s who are family caregivers absolutely are. And so this is a very tech-savvy audience that needs a lot of help. So that woman on the left, her mom's living with her house. She's doing the grocery shopping. She's going to doctor visits. She's researching medical equipment. She's managing finances. She's buying a lot of stuff. And she's buying it out of responsibility and out of guilt. Even if she doesn't like her parents, she still feels responsible to take care of them. So it's a great audience for you all who have products and services to be selling to, because she's got money, she's tech savvy, she feels like she has to buy this stuff to keep her loved one safe, whether she likes that loved one or not, or even if it's a disliked one, not even a loved one. So that's all I've got to share, but if you are targeting this market, we're not selling products and services, but we've got a front row seat on people that are buying products and services, and I can't encourage you enough to be thinking about the family caregiver as your primary customer for anything to do with technology for this market. That's all I had to say, but I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone have any about the data that we see or what sort of products and services people are looking for. Okay, well, I kept in my time limit then. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
All right.
Andy.